Loma Linda, 1050 AM, K292FQ Riverside, and K293CF Moreno Valley.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Here at U-Turn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small government. Join your hosts, Nadia Renner, Tom Murphy, and Eric Steinman, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your community. So come on, join us and let's turn it around.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Happy Sunday. Just for all you French fries lovers like myself, I just wanted to share this fun fact. Today's National Potato Day. So, I got so excited right now. I'm like, today's National Potato Day. And if we think about the stuff that you can make with potatoes, there's tons of things. But anyways, just
okay, we're not sponsored, but who's on the top of the potato pile then?
Actually, it makes a lot of sense. It's McDonald's. I'm not sponsoring anything, but top one.
Okay, according to the internet,
McDonald's
is on top of the French fry pile.
There's actually a study on this, and yep, it's McDonald's and then Burger King. So
who funded the study?
McDonald's. Well, today we have a great show here at U-Turn. We don't just talk about potatoes. We actually believe in big-hearted communities and small governments. We are certain that the Inland Empire is big-hearted, as we see each week here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to today's show, particularly because we're doing prescription drugs, and that's obviously not just a local problem. And we're gonna our guest today is Dr. Steinman. He's an orthopedic surgeon, worked in the area for years, and I really want to hear kind of his perspective, because he's going to have a good handle not only kind of nationally, but how prescription drug issues affects us locally, and if there's anything locally that folks can do. You know, obviously the price of prescription drugs has been in the news, and maybe there's something that folks can do locally to kind of combat that.
Absolutely. So we have a great show, very informative show today. Also, if you are listening to us, you can call us at 909-792-5222. That's 909-792-5222. You can definitely join in the conversation. But if you call in, all of our listeners that call in get rewarded. That's right. If you call in, we will spin the wheel, and you can win from hundreds to thousands of dollars. We already gave out more than $6,000, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can win from hundreds to thousands. We've given out more than 6,000. So, like I said, call us 909-792-5222. You can also email us at info@uturnradio.com. That's info@uturnradio.com. You can also find episodes at uturnradio.com. That's www.uturnradio.com. So, like,
inside joke.
Right. So like you said, we have a great show today. We have Dr. John Steinman joining us as our guest today. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good and live. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet.
Yeah, and full disclosure, Dr. Steinman is the brother of Eric Steinman, our co-host, who is off radio today. He may show up later, but
we have the brother.
But we have, yes, and a couple things about Dr. Steinman. First, he is a healer. He's been practicing medicine. His website says over 25 years. I think that might be a little bit out of date, because it might have been a little longer than that, but maybe not. And he's an orthopedic surgeon, treats traumatic and degenerative conditions of the neck, the lower back, and obviously the mid back. And he also takes care of traumatic injuries for pelvis and hip area.
Wow. He's also a teacher. He's serving as an assistant clinical professor at both Western University and Loma Linda University.
Yeah, and just because he is probably likes to work a lot, he also adds to his duties as both a healer and teacher. He's an administrator. He serves as medical director of the Spine and Joint Institute for Redlands Community Hospital. He's the director of the Spine Trauma for Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, and he's also the president of Arrowhead Orthopedics.
And finally, he's an entrepreneur too. I mean, Dr. Steinman, you are very busy. Thank you so much again for being with us. You are the founder and CEO of Renovis Surgical Technologies and managing member of Inland Surgical Products, both established to provide better quality technology and value for the orthopedic medical profession. Such a busy man.
Thank you.
And I think he's a grandpa like 10 times over. Is that true also?
Yeah, it's true. 11 times.
Oh, okay. Congratulations. Outstanding. Hey, what we kind of like to lead out with is, obviously as a doctor, prescription drug is going to be important as part of the tools of the trade. But is there something that makes you more invested in this topic? Prescription drugs. What kind of gets you?
Yeah, Tom, if you look at the different things that I've gotten into outside of the clinical practice of orthopedics, it's areas where there is lack of market forces and a disadvantaged position for society. I'm interested in all areas where the consumer of healthcare services is disadvantaged by, in this case, non-transparent and predatory business and political interests. I want to be the voice from the inside saying that we're really not doing a good job of providing high-value healthcare in the United States, and we are threatening our country to a large degree with the costs. And as you'll see in this talk today, this is a great topic to highlight those many ailments of our healthcare delivery system, many of which are supported by special interest groups. And hopefully we'll be able to identify a couple things that we can do going forward to challenge our legislators on their really gross failure in this regard.
Okay, and I particularly appreciate that emphasis on, hey, I'm inside the system and I see places that are broken, and I can do something about that. And if I remember correctly, that was a bit of your motivation, or it was the motivation for both of the two companies that you started, Renovis Surgical and Inland Surgical Products. Is my memory correct there?
Yeah, and it's very similar problem there, which is medical devices. The fundamental problem that we will talk about today is the absence of true market forces and the extreme disadvantage that our society is in because of the lack of transparency in market forces. Medical devices and pharmaceutical industry are very similar in both accounts. So yes, Renovis and Inland Surgical Products are two companies that are aiming to improve society's position and leverage and value when it comes to medical devices.
Outstanding.
So let's get into a little bit more of the prescription part. So let's say if you need like replacement surgery, what would you likely prescribe for pain as far as the process of getting healed?
Okay. Yeah, if you just had surgery, you're most likely going to be provided a narcotic analgesic, a fairly powerful medication to help you in the early days following surgery. A very common medication prescribed is hydrocodone, comes under the names of Lortab or Norco. And you may be prescribed a muscle relaxer as well, but for sake of this discussion and keeping it simple, you most likely are going to get a narcotic analgesics, and in this case we can call it a prescription for Norco.
Okay, that's great. I like that particularly since Norco would be easy to easy to say. What we want to do kind of in this section is kind of learn about the regulatory structure. Who controls Norco, or how Norco makes it to market?
Norco cannot come to market without approval by the FDA. In the United States, the FDA has the exclusive approval process for drugs and medical devices. So the manufacturer of Norco would have to obtain clearance from the FDA, and that process we can talk about if you wish.
Go into that a little bit. Let's say I invented Norco right now. Right. I made it over there on the other side of KCAA's studio. How long would it take from the moment I made that prescription drug until somebody could actually use it?
That time would probably be in the area of 6 to 10 years, and it may be cost you in the area of $10 to $20 million.
Oh wow! So how do they test it? Like like Tom said, if he made it, and I know you said 10 years, which is a very long time. So within those 10 years, how does the test of a pill or Norco in this example, what's the process for that?
So it starts in the laboratory with creating the chemical structure that is intended to have a desired outcome, to block a receptor on a cell or to initiate a set of other reactions inside the body. So but in the lab, the chemical structure is developed, and then that manufacturer must go out to test that chemical in animals to define if in fact it is having a desired effect, but most importantly, to be sure that it is safe. Following that, and during the process, they will be keeping the FDA appraised as to what it is that they are doing. Following successful clearance of animal testing and relative assurance as to the human safety, they enter a 3-phase process of human clinical testing. First phase starts with a very few numbers, maybe 20 to 50 healthy volunteers. And the goal in this phase is to determine what the drug's most frequent side effects are. Once they have passed phase 1, phase 2, they broaden it. And in this case, they may have 200 or 300 volunteers. The goal is to obtain preliminary data on whether the drug works in people who have a certain disease or a condition. So now we're starting to test the efficacy of it. And lastly, phase 3 typically is a much wider spread, has well over 1,000 volunteers, and all of their interactions are evaluated very closely. And here again, we're looking to assure efficacy, but more importantly in this third phase is to get a very good handle on the safety of the drug. After it has passed those 3, then it can apply for a new drug approval through the FDA. And the FDA will take the application, review all the testing, and do a facility inspection on the manufacturing company, and finally award the clearance for the drug to be marketed in the United States. And after the clearance, then the drug is required in both medical devices and pharmaceuticals that post-market surveillance is ongoing. And then the process for medical devices is fairly similar to what I outlined for pharmaceuticals as well.
So I'm assuming after the FDA does that, are they also in control of saying what can be sold over the counter or what needs to?
Yeah, they control what drugs can be marketed in the United States. So yeah, it's not going to no drug is going to find its way onto any accepted formulary in a hospital nor in an insurance company's formulary. And no physician is going to prescribe a non-FDA cleared device unless it meets criteria to be excluded from FDA, such as natural vitamin supplements and so forth.
Okay, that's probably a good segue to my next question is, okay, the drug company has invested quite a bit of money. They finally get it through FDA approval. Who regulates, or what governs what, if you will, the man on the street, what drug they can access? So I come in, I just had, back fusion or something like that. Who regulates what I can actually get into my hand?
So if you're a Medicaid recipient, every drug that is FDA approved has to be made available to you. If you are in an HMO or a PPO with your insurance, they will have formularies. Those formularies have been constructed by the insurance plans and the pharmacy benefit managers. Insurance plans or pharmacy benefit managers to identify the list of drugs that will be available for the patients on that in that plan.
So, I mean, this can also take us, if you can describe the pricing structure for prescription drugs, how does that work?
That's where the wheels come off this whole thing. There's really no market forces that determine the appropriate pricing. And basically, there's a submarket that goes on that is not transparent to you or I, and that is the negotiations that go on between insurance companies, pharmacy benefit managers, which are the middlemen, and the drug manufacturers. And it's probably reasonable at this time to introduce the pharmacy benefit manager, because as you'll come to know, this historic middleman, which started in this industry to process claims for payers, they started off with an administrative role, and they found themselves in the having an integral role in the supply chain of pharmaceuticals. And to our society's great detriment, they have leveraged that position to their enormous financial benefit. Nobody talks about these. They stand themselves up as being the middlemen that are negotiating better prices for insurance companies. And while they do negotiate prices, the more you look into and understand this industry, the more you will see that that their incentives are very malaligned. These pharmacy benefit managers are compensated in three ways, but just a little bit of relevance to these pharmacy benefit managers. They basically control all of pharmaceutical pricing in the United States. They cover the top three cover 95% of the U.S. population. 95%.
Wait, so when you say the top three, there's just three companies that cover 95% of the prescription drugs?
That's correct.
Oh, wow.
And each of those three have revenues well in excess of $15 billion by three different means. Number one is rebates. Number two is administrative fees, which is really the only legitimate fee that they should be getting. And number three is pharmacy spread. So let's, if we can, and I'm going to take some time on this because this is critical for us all to know how convoluted and corrupt this system is. Start with rebates. The pharmacy benefit manager negotiates rebates from the pharmaceutical companies and shares those rebates back with the insurers. They do not share those back with you, the patient. And it creates a malincentive because the rebates are typically a percentage-based rebate. So the pharmacy benefit manager is incented to have the $1,400 a month drug on the formulary versus the $200 a month drug, because their rebates are going to be 7 times as great.
Wow.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
As a patient, I'm already paying out of pocket here, but keep going with that.
So as a patient, you can trust that 30% of the money that you pay for prescription drugs is going to insurance companies and pharmacy benefit managers through rebates. 30%. That number is $100 billion a year. That $100 billion a year should be shared with you. These individuals, your insurance company and your insurance company's benefit managers should be working for you, not for them. And they're working for themselves and extracting $100 billion a year without producing a single drug. The last thing is the pharmacy spread. They negotiate a price for a drug with the manufacturer and a different price with the insurer. So once again, they create an arbitrage that benefits them financially. And you, the patient, with your copay and your co-insurance, you're asked to pay a percentage of the list price or negotiated price. Well, what happens, you take a for instance, a $400 a month drug that is negotiated by the PBM to $320. You're going to have to pay that $320 fee. Meanwhile, your insurer is getting $77 a rebate, and the pharmacy benefit manager is getting $51 a rebate. They're making money on you receiving that drug until which time you meet your deductible and they have to start to pay. But 65 to 80% of people never reach their deductible in any given year. So these pharmacy benefit managers and health plans are making money off of your use of prescription medications.
Wow, that's insane. So let me ask you, because this actually has happened to me before. I went to the doctors, and then when they prescribed me the medicine that I needed, they gave me two options, and they said, you can buy this one, which is what we recommend, but there's also this second one that's kind of like the knockoff is the word that I remember using. It's like the knockoff of this. It's just a little cheaper. How does that work when they have those different type of prices and those different drugs that are going to do the same thing but different prices?
So we don't develop very many new drugs each year, maybe 4 or 5. And so we should be seeing 85% of the medications that we obtain coming through as generics. These are, the patent has expired, and now it's just a matter of printing the pills. And those should be a reduction of 90% in the cost. But again, going back to the pharmacy benefit managers and insurance companies, they're malaligned in their incentives. They do not want generics to take over. So of course they told you this is the one we recommend for you, but you can have this generic. And the generic market is suppressed by the very lucrative brand name market. So in various ways, many of which are unethical and likely illegal. So yes, you should always get a quality equivalent generic option. And as we talk about it later, what we can do as patients or locally, that's one thing we need to be doing, is asking for these equal quality generic alternatives. I have a very interesting story along the lines of what we're talking about, that regarding a drug that will underscore some of these problems. And if you look at the drug Vimovo, V-I-M-O-V-O, or Duexis, you will find that that is a combination of naproxen or Motrin and a acid-reducing pill, both of which are over the counter. It's the combination of a $7 drug with a $19 drug being sold for $2,300. And you ask yourself, how could that ever happen?
Right.
And Yeah, it defines corruption at multiple levels. Number one, the pharmacy benefit manager is probably making a significant amount on that $2,300 price. You will look at Blue Cross's formulary and you will see Vimovo on the formulary for $2,247. That's the combination of a $7 drug and a $9 drug that's costing you, the American public, $2,247, making a huge check to the pharmacy benefit manager, a huge rebate back to the insurer. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Absolutely.
Why? And our pharmacists, if they sell the two drugs separately, that pharmacy is going to make $3 profit. If they ignore the fact that this is just a combination of two over-the-counter drugs that they could instruct the patient to get, instead they fill the prescription for Vimovo or Duexis, their profit is going to be $300. So here you see all the people working behind the scenes making significant amount of money, and the common citizen is paying the price tag for all their actions.
That's insane. We're going to actually go into a commercial break, and we're going to cover more here on U-Turn Radio, the prescription drug industry.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
Come soar with us. We're Zip Lines, located in the San Gabriel Mountains, right next to Mountain High Ski Resort. We offer the thrill of a lifetime, zipping through one of our 2 zip courses that are literally built in the trees. Our Canopy Tour is one of the most ambitious zip line courses in the nation, offering heights of up to 300 feet above the forest floor and lengths of over 1,500 feet. Our mountaintop tour provides another amazing zip line experience and, as a bonus, a very unique experience. Imagine leaping off a tree platform in a controlled free fall. Now, imagine doing it twice. These are not for the faint of heart, but we know you have the right stuff to soar with us. For further information, please visit our website at ziplinesPC.com. That's ziplinesPC.com. You can make sure we hold a place for you by selecting your tour package and date online. That's ziplinesPC.com. Come soar with us. Support the San Bernardino City Mission. Your donations help feed the hungry, provide used clothing for low-income families, provide access to housing and rehabilitation for the homeless, and help all who come to them for help. The mission provides a personalized assistance program for homeless men and homeless women and children. They help get less fortunate off the streets, place them in safe shelters, and get them back on their feet. Last month, the community helped provide over 7,400 meals and provided nearly 2,000 pieces of clothing, as well as almost 180 hygiene kits, which were provided for the needy. San Bernardino City Mission goes above and beyond, though, providing personal counsel, prayer, and a devotion time to encourage those in need in their spiritual life. So listen up, everyone. For a donation of just $1.57, you can feed a hungry person right here in San Bernardino. $15.70 will feed 10 people, and $157 will feed 100 hurting men, women, and children. If you're interested in helping and want to know more additional information, you can go to sanbernardinocitymission.org or call 909-649-0011. 909-649-0011. The San Bernardino City Mission, feeding the hungry, helping the homeless. That number again, 909-649-0011. Or visit them online, sanbernardinocitymission.org.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn Radio Show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Today, we have such a great show, so informative. The prescription drug industry. We have Dr. Steinman with us via Skype. And right before a commercial break, Doctor, you told us, and Tom and I are over here, wait, what? You told us that you can buy a $7 prescription or a $7 drug and a $19 drug, put them together and use them, compared to selling it for $2,300.
Yeah,
$2,300.
So I go to the doctor and he says I'm going to give you a prescription. I think you said it was Venmo. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't catch the name of the prescription, But then what it sounded like is, if I had a little background, I could say, yeah, I'm not going to buy that, and I could run down to the local drugstore and get 2 different over-the-counter drugs that would do exactly the same thing. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's the exact same drugs. So you can buy naproxen over the counter as a leave, and you can buy omeprazole or Nexium, and you can combine the two. You can take 2 tablets and get the same effect as the prescription for either Duexis or Vimovo. And so it is an absolute fact that Vimovo and Duexis are nothing more than a $7 drug and a $19 drug combined, and being sold for $2,247 and on the formulary for Blue Cross, which means that somebody had to decide that price was okay to pay for that drug, which is absolutely ludicrous. Why would they do that? The reason they would do that is because they likely have a very hefty rebate coming back to them. They're not going to get any rebate if you buy the over-the-counter equivalent. They're going to get a huge rebate. Similarly, your pharmacist is going to get $3 profit by you buying the $7 drug and the $19 drug. They're going to get a $300 profit by you buying Vimovo or Duexis. And that simple example right there fleeced the American public for over $1 billion last year. And the sad thing about it is it's going to do it again this year and next year and the following year.
And I'm assuming those prices will probably just keep going up as time goes by. So, which brings me to this question: how does the government influence the prescription industry, or is that like something? Is he now, or how does that develop into this?
Actually, let's use this example as an example. If the FDA is responsible for the prescription, what can be sold as a prescription drug, why wouldn't the FDA say, hey, this, guys, you're just combining these 2 different drugs that you can just get over the counter. We're not going to give you we're not going to classify that as a prescription drug. That's stupid. Why wouldn't they?
So the FDA doesn't necessarily define it as a prescription drug or not, and they tend not to get into the economics at all. They're basically the regulatory process to clear it. So the question was, how does the government influence the pricing of the pharmaceutical industry? And the bigger question is, how does the pharmaceutical industry influence the government? They have some 3,000 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. that have created the situation that we are in. Their livelihood depends upon the poor market forces that exist here being maintained, or the status quo being maintained. So this example that I gave to you, the FDA is not going to get involved in the economics around that.
Okay.
And I think we discussed why that happened. And so the real question is, why is the government not stepping up on our behalf?
Right.
I said that fleecing of $1 billion on that one drug is going to occur year after year. Why don't we have our legislators doing something about this?
And
I think it's the classic. It's a classic special interest and effect of the lobbying groups.
So how do the doctors feel about this? I mean, you're like, how do your colleagues feel about these type of issues?
The vast majority in that example I gave you,
yeah,
the vast majority don't have any knowledge that that's occurring. We have no information as to what a drug that we write for is going to be sold for. We have no information about the rebates that exist, the discounts that exist, the amount the patient is going to have to pay themselves. And you could argue that you don't want the doctors being too much involved in the economics, but the vast majority of healthcare spending comes as a result of what our pen does as we write prescriptions or write treatment plans or referrals. So we know that increasingly physicians have to take a much stronger stand in understanding what's going on. I brought this issue with Vimovo and Duexis to my partners, and it was met with varying degrees of concern. Some unfortunately felt that this was somebody else's deal to fight. Some became incensed and appropriately so would never write for that drug.
In terms of the doctor, and that was kind of interesting that the doctor really, he just kind of knows the science or how the drug works, and sounds like most doctors aren't really going to be understanding of the economics behind it. So you have the federal government, the FDA. What about at the state level? How does the California state involved, if you will, in prescription drugs, or are they not? Is this just a federal role? So
largely a federal role. There are some states, I think 4 or 5 states, that are currently trying to get the approval to purchase prescription drugs from Canada. As we talked about earlier, or probably we need to expound on, is that there is a law that prohibits the federal government from negotiating pharmaceutical pricing. No such law exists in all of Europe. The governments of Europe dictate what pharmaceutical pricing will be, and hence they get our drugs for 1/4 to 1/2 of what we pay for them. And you have to ask yourself, why would our politicians not support such a plan on behalf of the American public? But there's a law that precludes them from doing that. So the federal failures are significant. States there's a few states trying to do something about being able to go over to Canada and buy prescription medications. But the states are largely out of it.
What about at a local?
Wait a second, before we move on. There's a law that says the federal government can't negotiate a price on a prescription drug. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's ludicrous. And Trump came into office stating he was going to do something about that, and he was also going to make sure that we could go to Canada and Mexico and purchase these prescription drugs, but that has yet to occur.
Well, okay, I'm retired military, so TRICARE Prime, obviously a federal government funded program. How does TRICARE Prime, if you will, set prices for whatever drugs that they're going to buy to prescribe to me, especially if they can't negotiate the price?
Yeah, they rely on third-party pharmacy benefit managers that have done a horrible job for us. It's absolutely crazy, Tom. You can go to I'll give you some examples real briefly that I wrote down. You can buy the medication Humira for $4,500 a month here in the U.S., $543 a month in Mexico.
Wow.
You get multiple sclerosis drug, Avonex, in the United States, $6,750. In Mexico, $1,367.
Wow. That's like a huge difference.
Yeah, and these are these all coming from the same plant? The same manufacturer?
Here's an example of a medication that I'm very familiar with in orthopedics, Synvisc, which is a viscosupplement. It's injected into an arthritic knee to lubricate it and ideally give the patient more comfort with that artificial knee for a longer period of time before they need a knee replacement. That medication is produced by Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson puts a lot number on the side of the package. It has an extra number on it if it's intended for sale outside of the United States. And that's so they could track it and make sure it doesn't come back in the United States. So it's made here, and a number is put on it to allow it to be sold for 1/3 the price in Canada. And we are legally prevented from bringing it back across the border and purchasing it for 30% less.
That's just insane. I mean, the prices, I'm just blown away, like, for the difference. It's not even like a 50, like, it's so much. It's so high. It's like triple, even more.
Yeah, imagine if you wanted to buy an F-150 Ford truck and you had to pay $90,000 for it in the United States. It sold in Canada for $30,000, but you were prohibited from going over to Canada and buying the exact same truck that was made in the United States.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah.
We would never stand for that, and I don't know why we continue to stand for it in pharmaceutical pricing, except that I know why it's happening, and that's the 3,000 lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and the pharmacy benefit managers. You know, it's the whole system is quite corrupt. I'm very glad that you chose to look at this issue.
Well, I think, too, like, I mean, just getting these numbers from you, it gives me a whole different perspective. Like, I mean, I know that there's certain medication that's expensive, but I didn't know, like you said, the corruption behind it, how big it is. And especially when you're giving us this knowledge, like, you know, in numbers, it's just amazing. Like, I would have never known this type of information. I think, and it happens to a lot of citizens. I don't think we are aware of what's really happening behind closed doors.
Oh, totally, because you know, the cost is not. I'm not bearing the cost, if you will.
Right.
I mean, I pay a copay, you know, $12 copay for the medicine, and I don't think about it. So, you know, it's kind of one of those free market things. If you know, the government, et cetera, is buying and they're paying the price, or the insurance folks are paying you the price, you know, all I care about is my little $12 part,
Right.
or $30 part, or whatever it ends up being. And without kind of that bite of, you know, are you going to pay $100 for the generic version, or are you going to pay $5,000 for the non-generic version? That's a no-brainer to anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, Tom. Eric here.
Hey, did you guys win?
Yeah, we did.
That's Eric joining us via telephone.
And I got 5 minutes for the next game because we won. But I had a question for John. What about how the Indian reservations are sovereign nations, and that's how they can do the gambling? What about putting hospitals or treatment centers on the Indian reservations? They probably wouldn't be subject to these rules. You'd be able to get pricing like a foreign country, wouldn't you? Let's ask that one.
So the problem is most insurances will require Medicare certification for any facility that they're going to insure and make payments to. And so the Indian tribes are going to have to comply by the same set of regulations that exist outside of the reservation.
So an Indian reservation would actually have to build a facility that would be compliant with Medicare. Is that?
Yeah, that's true. But now they can go ahead. They're not precluded in any way from negotiating pricing. So on pharmaceutical products, so they could definitely go a long way in improving costs there. I think the idea of doing that, getting around all the problems that exist in our government and in healthcare. I mean, look at it. We pay nearly $10,000 per every individual in the United States. That's nearly twice what the next closest country pays. So we're failing hugely. And so to get healthcare delivery outside the grasp of the federal government is a great idea, Eric. Just on the hospital side, that would be a little problematic for insurance companies to pay for. You know,
we were our next section really is to to talk a little bit about proposed solutions, and let me kind of lead into that with, you know, let's say Dr. John Steinman was king for a day, and all you could do was make edicts about prescription drugs. What edicts would you make to kind of fix this issue, to get consumers access to prescription drugs at, you know, the best price that the market would bear?
So I would mandate price transparency. I would allow the U.S. government to negotiate pharmaceutical pricing. I would allow you and I to purchase from a Canadian-based pharmacy as long as there was some level of Canadian or Mexican or European or whatever, as long as there was some level of assurance that the product wasn't tainted with. I would absolutely get rid of pharmacy benefit managers or put them back to where they were when they started. I would prohibit rebates. Rebates are, I truly believe that there needs to be a class action lawsuit that goes after all pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies for the rebates, because they have not honored the contracts that we have with the American public. They propose that the cost is one thing, and then they take the rebate. The cost really is the net cost, but we're charged. We have to pay our portion based on the cost before the rebate. So pharmacy benefit managers, take them out, and then insurance companies must be transparent with their pricing and their formulary. So decorrupt the process.
What about us citizens? Like, how can we start maybe like looking into these type of things to have like some type of change, or is there a solution that we can do as citizens?
Start asking questions. When you're given a prescription, ask what the alternatives are, and ask any politician that you come across what their position is on pharmaceutical pricing. Ask your elected officials, write to your congressman and ask them to explain, please, why do you pay 3 times as much for American-made pharmaceutical products than somebody in a European country or Canada? Make them explain it to you. And demand, if you can, like I think the county is self-funded. They must have a pharmacy benefits manager that they hire. They should demand transparency as to all the rebates that are existing, because I can tell you that pharmacy benefit manager is out there securing high-priced drugs, putting them on the county formulary so they can make their big rebates to the detriment of the citizens of the county. So start asking for transparency around this issue.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. The pharmacy benefit manager that would, like you said, just work for the county, would that be on the county provided medical health care for employees? Is that kind of what we're talking about, or are we talking about the services provided by Arrowhead, the local county hospital?
So it's the insurance product that the county provides for its employees. Okay. If it buys that through a third-party insurer, then they may not have the leverage. But if they self-fund, which I believe they do, if they self-fund, then they should be able to ask for this transparency and find out how much money is being paid by the county for prescription drugs that is finding its way into pharmacy benefit managers' pockets. Because we should be paying for safe and well-designed and effective drugs. We should be paying the manufacturer of those. We don't need to be paying a bunch of middlemen.
I definitely agree, and I think too that as far as like a citizen, sometimes we don't look into these type of things, because I feel like doctors and like there's a different type of trust that I feel like I have with my doctor, where I'm like, well, he knows best, you know, like, so right, I don't think like I've never thought of this side of the business, and like you said, all these middlemen that are involved in this prescription world, that I would have never thought this even existed, because it's one of those things that you go to the doctors and you're like, oh, well, I trust them and they know what they're doing, and you get the medication or whatever without knowing the back information behind it all, you know?
Yeah, and I can tell you that the doctors, what I said earlier, they don't know. My partners, when I told them about Demovo and Doexis, they had absolutely no knowledge. The pharmaceutical rep came in and said, we have this medication, it combines a stomach protectant so that your patient will always have that whenever they take this medication, and it will reduce your gastric side effects. So the doctor's going to go, that makes sense, I'll write for it. Nowhere was it disclosed what the price was. And I'm the one that I'm wired to ask and to look into it, but I'm a minority there. The majority of them assume that there's a market force out there that is going to control that price, and obviously that doesn't exist.
Now, as far as the law that you mentioned earlier too, like how can we start looking into getting that changed as citizens, or what would be the process of that law getting changed, where we can purchase a prescription from Mexico, Canada?
I think every one of your representatives that go to Washington, your senator and your congressman, write them the question and demand an answer as to why can't Canadians purchase our own pharmaceutical products for a third of what we pay. They need to explain that. They're not held by their constituents to explain it. And we voted in somebody that said he was going to do something about this. Demand that something is done about it.
Yeah, I think we have to hold them responsible for these type of things.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading on that before the show, and I guess they've put out an American Patients First movement, but the reading I was doing was it's kind of pretty much more of the same.
Yeah.
Is there any other information you would want to cover with us that you think is really important that we probably didn't ask you, Dr. Steinman?
No, I think you guys hit on all the areas. And I think we had an opportunity in this hour to bring up some situations that exist that we as doctors don't know about, and that certainly the public doesn't know about. And hopefully this information will stimulate us all to step up and do something about it, and start to ask those questions and make those demands for fair pricing for our citizens in the United States.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's really
important. I want to say one last thing, and that you'll hear the pharmaceutical companies say that they need this pricing because without it they won't innovate anymore, and that's absolutely not true. They only dedicate 4% of their revenue to research and development. Europe has similar pharmaceutical companies that sell in Europe for their products for a third of what we pay, and they innovate drugs equally as good and equally as important as we do. So don't ever let that be believed as a reason.
Hey, Dr. Steinman, real quick, we got I think about a minute and a half left here, but one thing we do here on the show is a spin for charity. So anybody who dials in, we do a spin, and we donate to your favorite named charities. So I'm going to hit my spinner here. And as I do that, be thinking about what your favorite charity is. It looks like you landed on $1,300. So
nice.
If you have a favorite charity that you'd like us, we'll go ahead and take that information and probably follow up with you to get a little background on it. But what would that charity be?
That charity would be providing orthopedic services for the disadvantaged in Haiti. I know the medical team that goes down there, and I know the money will be all put into the right place. I know that one of the companies that we talked about earlier, Renovis, we've been supporting doing total hip replacements, providing everything for total hip replacements for patients that would that are debilitated and would not otherwise get that. So I will be very happy to get you the information and contact for that charity.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us today and for your time. We really appreciate it, Dr. Steinman.
You bet. It was a pleasure.
And that wraps it up for us here at U-Turn Radio.
Oh, outstanding. That was fun.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.